Admiral Jiho Kang stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel, watching the massive station grow larger through the window. Kepler 9 was the heart of the Galactic Council, a structure so large it had its own gravity. Ships from 1,000 different worlds docked at its ports every day. For 87 years, humanity had been part of this grand alliance. For 87 years, they had been treated like children. Beside him, Ambassador Hana Lee reviewed her notes one last time. Her hands were steady, but Jiho could see the tension in her jaw. They both knew what today's vote would bring. They had known for weeks. They'll reject it again, Hana said quietly. The intelligence reports were clear. The Krell have been buying votes, Jiho nodded. How many times have we applied for full voting rights? 16 times in 87 years. The door opened and a young officer entered. Admiral? Ambassador? They're ready for you. The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, each occupied by a representative from the member species. At the center, on the highest platform, sat the 5 counselors who held the real power. Counselor Vex Thun, a massive reptilian from the Krell Empire, dominated the center seat. His scales were deep green, and his eyes held nothing but contempt when he looked at the human delegation. The vote for application 847, requesting full council voting rights for the human species, will now commence. Vex Thun announced. His voice boomed through the chamber without need for amplification. Hana stood at the speaker's podium. She had given this speech before, with slight variations. She spoke of humanity's contributions, the improved FTL drives that had cut travel times by 30%, the medical treatments that had saved billions across the galaxy, the agricultural techniques that had ended famines on 17 worlds, the educational exchanges, the cultural sharing, the peaceful coexistence. The council listened with the same bored expressions they always wore. When the vote came, the result was inevitable. 847 species voted against. 1 voted in favor. Humanity stood alone. As always, the application is denied. Vex Thun said. There might have been amusement in his voice. Perhaps in another decade, the humans will have matured enough to warrant such responsibility. Several council members laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like mockery, but Vex Thun wasn't finished. There is one more matter today. The Krell Empire has petitioned for exclusive mining rights in the Tanis system. As this system contains a human colony, we will vote on relocation protocols. Jiho's blood went cold. Hana turned to look at him, her eyes wide. The Tanis colony? Hana stepped forward. Counselor, there are 4 million humans living there. 3 generations have been born on those worlds. This is their home, and the system contains rare minerals essential to Krell manufacturing, Vex Thun replied. The Council must consider the greater good. The Krell contribution to our economy far exceeds that of one minor human settlement. They are people, not numbers on a trade manifest, Hana said. Her voice rose, anger breaking through her diplomatic training. The vote will proceed. It took less than 5 minutes. The relocation was approved. 4 million humans would be removed from their homes, their cities dismantled, their lives uprooted. All for Krell profit. Jiho watched Hana's hands grip the podium. He had served with her for 15 years. He had seen her negotiate treaties, resolve conflicts, and maintain dignity in the face of countless insults. But this was different. This wasn't about pride or politics. This was about people's lives. Ambassador, Vex Thun said, you have 60 days to begin the evacuation. Krell mining vessels will arrive in 90. We trust this will be sufficient time. Hana looked up at the council. When she spoke, her voice was calm. Too calm. Counselor Vex Thun, honored council members, I have a response from the people of Earth. She pulled out a small data device and placed it on the podium. A holographic document appeared in the air above the chamber, large enough for everyone to see. It was simple, just a few lines of text. To the Galactic Council, Hana read aloud. For 87 years, we came to you in peace. We shared our knowledge. We followed your laws. We endured your contempt. We stayed because we believed in the promise of this alliance. We stayed because we chose peace over pride. She paused, and the chamber fell silent. But you have gone too far. You vote to destroy our homes, to scatter our people, to treat us as nothing more than obstacles to profit. You have shown us that peace means nothing without respect, that cooperation means nothing without equality. Another pause. Jiho saw movement in the upper tiers. Council members were leaning forward now, paying attention. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. All human ambassadors, delegations, and personnel will return to Earth within 90 days. All trade agreements are suspended. All defense pacts are void. All shared research projects are terminated. The chamber erupted. Councilors shouted. Representatives jumped to their feet. Vexthun's voice boomed over the chaos, demanding order. Hana continued speaking, her voice cutting through the noise. We came to you in peace. We stayed in peace. We bent to your laws even when they were unjust. But we will not allow you to destroy our people. We will not be your servants. We will not be your victims. She picked up the data device and looked directly at Vexthun. You have 90 days to remove all Council military presence from human space. After that, any Council vessel found in our territory will be treated as an act of war. We suggest you take this seriously. Vexthun laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. The humans issue threats? You are a junior species. You have no military capable of enforcing such demands. You are isolated, weak. This tantrum will end when reality sets in, and you will return, begging for readmission. Hana smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You've never actually looked at what we're capable of, have you? You've been so certain of our weakness that you never bothered to check if you were right. That was your first mistake. Your second was pressing us too far. She turned and walked toward the exit. Jiho fell into step beside her, along with the rest of the human delegation. Behind them, the council chamber descended into chaos. Councilors argued. Species that had been suppressed by Krell expansion watched with sudden interest, and Vex's Thun sat on his platform, confident that the humans would return within weeks. Desperate and submissive. He was wrong. As their ship left Kepler 9, Jiho looked at Hana. You know what comes next. War, she said simply. They won't let us leave. They can't afford to let other species think rebellion is possible. Are we ready? Hana pulled up a classified file on her tablet. Jiho saw fleet compositions, weapon specifications, intelligence reports. Decades of preparation. We've been ready for 30 years, she said. We just hoped we'd never need it. The ship jumped to FTL, leaving the council behind. Across human space, military bases went to full alert. Hidden weapons platforms powered up. Soldiers prepared for deployment. And Earth sent out a single message to all colonies. The hibernation doctrine is now active. The command center beneath Luna Base was 3 kilometers underground, built into the ancient rock of Earth's moon. Fleet Admiral Daehyun Park stood before a massive holographic display showing every human colony, every fleet position, every asset humanity possessed across the stars. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of screens. Status report, Da-Yun said. Director Nari Choi stepped forward. She was head of Terran intelligence, and she had been planning for this day longer than anyone. All ambassadors have been recalled. Intelligence assets are extracting now. We have 72 hours before the Council realizes how deep we've penetrated their networks. And the doctrine? All colonies have received activation codes. Defense platforms are powering up. Military personnel are reporting to stations. We're at 93% readiness. General Taeyang joined them at the display. He commanded all ground forces, and his face was grim. The colonies are scared. They're asking questions. They want to know if we can actually protect them. Show them, Daehyun said simply. The display changed. What had appeared to be empty space around human colonies suddenly filled with green icons. Hundreds of them. Thousands. What am I looking at? Taeyang asked. Defense platforms, Nari said. We've been building them for 30 years. Hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as mining stations, camouflaged as space debris. Every major colony has between 200 and 500 platforms in orbit. Each platform carries enough firepower to destroy a capital ship. Taeyang stared at the display. How did we keep this secret? Because everyone assumed we were weak. The council never bothered to look closely. They saw what they expected to see. Dr. Yuna Shin entered the command center. She was the chief military scientist, responsible for the weapons humanity had developed in secret. She looked exhausted, but excited. The council thinks our technology is primitive, Yuna said without preamble. She pulled up another display. They think our ships are slow, our weapons weak, our tactics simple. They think this because we let them think it. She began showing classified files. Weapon systems that had never been revealed. Ship designs that existed only in hidden shipyards. Technology that would shock the galaxy. EMP weapons calibrated specifically for Krell nervous systems. One pulse and their ships go dark. Their crews unconscious. Sonic disruptors tuned to Mothra hive frequencies. The insectoids communicate through subsonic vibrations. Disrupt that, and their entire command structure collapses. More files appeared. Each one more devastating than the last. Nano-weapons that can disassemble ship hulls at the molecular level. Gravitational mines that create artificial singularities. And this. She pulled up the final file. Planet killer missiles. We've never tested them. We've never told anyone they exist. But we have them. The room fell silent. How many? Daehyun asked. 300. Taeyang whistled low. Why so many? Because we hoped we'd never need them, Yuna said. Nari pulled up another display. While we're revealing secrets, let me show you what intelligence has been doing. The display showed the Council's military formations. Every fleet, every base, every ship. The positions were updated in real time. We have infiltrated every major Council military. We have agents in their command centers. We have backdoors in their communication systems. We know where their fleets are, where they're going, and what their orders are. We know their fuel levels, their ammunition stocks, their maintenance schedules. We know their weaknesses, Nari continued. The Krell rely on centralized command. Take out the command ship and the fleet falls apart. The Mothra need their queen's signal. Block it, and they're just individual insects. The Vextor use organic technology that's vulnerable to certain viruses we've developed. Every species in the Council, we've studied them. We know how to hurt them. Daehyun looked at his team. These people had been working in secret for decades, preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The Council will test us, he said. They'll send ships to see if we're serious. Let them come, Taeyang said. Daehyun turned back to the main display. He entered a command code, one he had carried for 15 years without ever using. The display changed, showing every Council embassy and base in human space. Send them the ultimatum. Every Council military presence has 30 days to leave human space. After that, we consider any Council ship an act of war. The message went out simultaneously to every Council world. It was short, direct, and backed by detailed scans, showing them exactly what humanity had hidden. The defense platforms, the fleet compositions, the weapon systems. Enough information to make it clear that this was not a bluff. The Council's response came within hours. Vexthon appeared on every communication channel, addressing the entire galaxy. His reptilian face filled the screens, his contempt obvious. "The humans have revealed their little secret weapons," he said. "They think hidden platforms and new technologies will allow them to threaten the Council. They are wrong. The Council has maintained peace for 2,000 years. We will not allow one minor species to disrupt that order." He paused for effect. "A peacekeeping fleet of 3,000 ships is being assembled. They will enter human space and restore order. The humans will stand down, return to Council authority, and face appropriate consequences for this rebellion. This is not negotiable." The transmission ended. In the Luna Base Command Center, no one spoke for a moment. Then Nari started laughing. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "Peacekeeping fleet. They actually called it that. 3,000 ships," Taeyang said. "That's twice the size of our entire fleet. They want to make an example of us," Daehyun said. "Show the galaxy what happens when someone defies them." Yuna pulled up tactical projections. "If they're sending 3,000 ships, they'll target our largest colony first. They'll want maximum impact. They'll go to Tanis, the colony they wanted to evacuate," Nari said. "Poetic." Daehyun studied the projections. The Council fleet would arrive in Tanis within 2 weeks. They would expect an easy victory. They would expect humans to surrender or be destroyed quickly. Send a message to Captain Minji Song. Tell her the Indomitable is being deployed to Tanis. She'll have command of the defense fleet. She only has 400 ships, Taeyang said. "I know. Against 3,000. I know. Those aren't good odds." Daehyun smiled. "They are when the enemy doesn't know what you're capable of. The Council is about to learn something important." "What's that?" "That humanity didn't choose peace because we were weak. We chose peace because we're smart enough to know that war is terrible. But now they've taken away the peace option, so they're going to learn what we're like when we're not being peaceful." He turned to his officers. "Activate all defense protocols. Scramble the fleets. Prepare every weapon system we have. And someone get me Ambassador Hana Lee. I want her to make one more broadcast to the Council." "What should she say?" Nari asked. "Tell them this is their last chance to back down. Tell them that 3,000 ships won't be enough. Tell them that we offered peace, and they rejected it. Now they'll face the consequences. And if they ignore us?" Daehyun looked at the display showing the approaching Council fleet. 3,000 ships, carrying millions of soldiers, all convinced they were about to crush a weak rebellion. Then we show them what humanity has been hiding. We show them why you don't push peaceful people too far. We show them that the most dangerous species in the galaxy isn't the one that chooses war. It's the one that chooses peace until you make war the only option. He entered another command. Across human space, soldiers received their orders. Ships powered up their weapons. Platforms aligned their firing solutions. And in the Tanis system, Captain Minji Song prepared to spring the trap that would change the galaxy forever. The Council had pressed too far. Now they would learn the price. Captain Minji Song stood on the bridge of the Terran dreadnought Indomitable, watching the Council fleet emerge from FTL. 3,000 ships appeared in the Tanis system like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. The display showed their formations, their weapon systems, their overwhelming numbers. "They really brought everyone," her first officer said quietly. "They want to make a statement," Minji replied. She was calm, her hands steady on the command console. She had trained for this moment for 20 years. "How many ships do we have?" 400 in the defense fleet. Another 100 platforms hidden in the asteroid field. The civilians are evacuated to the underground shelters. End quote. Minji nodded. The colonists on Tanis 3 had been preparing too. Haejin Park, the civilian leader, had organized the evacuation with military precision. She was a former soldier herself, and she had made sure every citizen knew what to do when war came. The Council fleet began moving into formation. Easily 10 times the size of the Indomitable. That would be the command ship. Krell War Prince Zalmor would be aboard, expecting an easy victory. Minji opened a channel to the fleet. All ships. This is song. Hold positions. Do not power weapons. Let them think we're afraid. The council fleet spread out, surrounding the human forces. They were taking their time, making a show of their superiority. Minji watched their movements, noting how they positioned themselves, how confident they were. A transmission came through. Zalmor's face appeared on the screen, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been a smile. Human captain, you have one chance to surrender. Power down your vessels. Submit to council authority, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Minji looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. You know what your mistake was? Zalmor's eyes narrowed. What? You assumed we were weak because we chose peace. You never considered that we might be stronger than you, and simply choosing not to show it. She cut the transmission and opened the fleet channel. All ships, execute protocol hammer. Now. Everything happened at once. The asteroid field exploded into motion. What had appeared to be rocks suddenly lit up with power signatures. Hundreds of defense platforms emerged, their weapons already charged, mines that had been disguised as debris activated, creating a kill zone around the council fleet. The human ships surged forward. They were smaller than the council vessels, but they moved like nothing the Krell had ever seen. Their acceleration was impossible. Their maneuvers violated every known principle of safe space travel. Target their command ship, Minji ordered. All forward batteries, fire. The Indomitable's weapons lit up. Railguns fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Laser arrays tracked and burned. Missile pods launched swarms of smart munitions, and the new weapons, the ones the Council had never seen, activated. EMP pulses swept through the Krell formations. Ships went dark, their systems overloaded. The Krell crews collapsed, their nervous systems unable to handle the electromagnetic interference. Wing Commander Sok. You're clear to engage, Minji said. Understood. All fighters. Let's show them how humans fly. 200. Wing Commander Seo Khan led 300 fighters into the heart of the Council fleet. The small craft moved with impossible agility, pulling maneuvers that would crush most species under the G-forces. But humans had always been good at handling acceleration. Their bodies were built for it. The fighters tore through the Council formations. They were too small to target easily, too fast to track, too aggressive to predict. They flew between the larger ships, firing at weak points, destroying weapon systems, creating chaos. The defense platforms opened fire. Each platform had the firepower of a capital ship, and there were hundreds of them. They poured fire into the Council fleet from all directions, turning the space around Tanis into a killing field. Zalmor's command ship tried to maneuver, but it was too large, too slow. Minji targeted it with everything the Indomitable had. The massive battleship's shields glowed under the assault, flickering and failing. Captain, the colonists are requesting permission to join the fight, her communications officer reported. Tell Heijin she's clear to fire. On the surface of Tanis 3, massive cannons emerged from hidden bunkers. The colonists had built them in secret, enormous magnetic accelerators that could fire from the ground into space. Heijin Park stood in the command center, coordinating the civilian defense force. Target coordinates locked, her weapons officer said. We have a clear shot at their carrier group. Fire, Heijin ordered. The ground shook as the Mac cannons fired. Massive projectiles, each weighing several tons, launched into space at incredible speeds. They struck the Council carrier group like hammers from God, punching through shields and armor, leaving nothing but debris. In space, the battle turned into a massacre. The Council fleet had expected an easy victory. They had expected humans to fight like other species, with predictable tactics and conventional weapons. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to have studied every weakness, anticipated every move, and prepared countermeasures for everything. Seox fighters swarmed a Mothra hive ship. Sonic disruptors activated, sending waves of precisely calibrated sound through the vessel. The insectoid crew lost all coordination. Their hive mind communication shattered. The ship drifted helplessly as fighters tore it apart. The Indomitable fired its main cannon, a weapon that compressed gravitational fields into a narrow beam. It struck Zalmor's command ship dead center, and the massive vessel simply folded in on itself, crushed by its own mass. All across the battlefield, Council ships died. Not damaged, not disabled, destroyed. Human weapons were designed not to wound but to kill, to eliminate threats completely and efficiently. Captain, the Council fleet is breaking formation, her tactical officer reported. They're trying to retreat. Minji watched the display. 3,000 ships had entered the system. Half were already destroyed or disabled. The rest were fleeing, in panic. Let them go. She opened a broadcast on all frequencies. One that every Council ship would receive. One that would be transmitted across the entire galaxy. This was mercy. We let you retreat. We could have destroyed you all, but we chose not to. Remember that. Remember that we gave you a chance. Because next time, we won't. The Council ships jumped to FTL, abandoning their dead and dying. The battle had lasted 6 hours. The humans had lost 37 ships and taken minimal casualties. The Council had lost over 2,000 vessels and hundreds of thousands of lives. As the last Council ship vanished, Minji allowed herself to breathe. Around her, the bridge crew cheered. They had won. They had faced impossible odds and won. Damage report, she said, bringing them back to focus. Minor hull damage on 12 ships. The Indomitable took some hits, but nothing critical. The platforms are intact. Tanis, 3 reports, no casualties. Soak's voice came through the comm. All fighters accounted for. Minji looked at the debris field that had been the Council fleet. So much death. So much destruction. And for what? Because the Council had refused to treat humans as equals. A transmission came from the surface. Heijin Park appeared on the screen, her face tired but satisfied. Captain Song, the colonists want to thank you. We were ready to lose everything. Instead, we're still here. You were ready to fight for yourselves, Minji said. Those Mac cannons were impressive. When did you build them? 10 years ago. We knew this day might come. Minji understood. Every human colony had been preparing. Not because they wanted war, but because they understood the Council might not leave them any choice. Get some rest, Minji said. We won today, but this isn't over. They'll send more ships. Let them, Heijin said. We're not afraid anymore. The transmission ended. Minji turned to her crew. Send the battle footage to Earth. Make sure Admiral Daehyun knows we held the line. Already done, Captain. And we're receiving reports from across human space. The other colonies saw what happened here. They're ready. End, Minji nodded. The Council had wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, humanity had made an example of the Council. Every species in the galaxy would now know that humans were not to be trifled with. That peace was not weakness. That mercy had limits. The Indomitable and its fleet began recovery operations, pulling survivors from disabled ships, securing the battlefield, preparing for whatever came next. Across the galaxy, the footage from Tanis spread like wildfire. Species that had been suppressed by the Council watched with wonder. Humanity, the junior species, the weak ones, the peaceful ones, had just destroyed the largest fleet ever sent against them. And they had made it look easy. The footage from Tanis changed everything. Within days, every species in the galaxy had seen it. The mighty Council fleet, destroyed in 6 hours. Human ships, moving with impossible speed. Weapons that seemed to come from nightmares. And worst of all for the Council, the message that humanity had shown mercy. In the Council chambers on Kepler 9, Chaos reigned. Counselor Vex's Thun tried to maintain order, but species that had always been quiet were now demanding answers. How had the humans hidden such military strength? Why had the Council underestimated them so badly? And most dangerously, what else had the Council been wrong about? Admiral Jiho Kang watched the Council's broadcasts from his flagship. After spending 15 years as a diplomatic officer, he had returned to military command. Now he led humanity's offensive operations, and he was very good at his job. The Council is fractured, his intelligence officer reported. 6 minor species have sent secret communications requesting meetings. They want to know if we'll support their independence. What does Director Nari say? Support them. The more the Council has to deal with internal problems, the less they can focus on us. Jiho nodded. Humanity wasn't invading Council space. They were doing something smarter. They were cutting the Council off from human trade routes. And several Council economies were collapsing as a result. Fuel prices had tripled. Food shortages were appearing on industrial worlds. The Council had built their empire on the assumption that conquered species would always be available for exploitation. Now humanity was showing those species another option. Ambassador Hana Lee appeared on his screen. She was no longer a diplomat. Now she was humanity's voice of rebellion, broadcasting messages to Council populations, revealing secrets the Council had kept for centuries. How's the information campaign going? Jiho asked. Better than expected. We've released documents showing 200 years of Council corruption, evidence of technology suppression, resource theft, forced relocations. The minor species are furious. Even some of the major species are questioning the Council's authority. Any response from the Council? They're calling us terrorists and liars, but they can't deny the documents. We have their own files, their own communications. Vexthun is scrambling to hold everything together. A new alert appeared on Jiho's display. We have movement. 3 Council fleets are heading toward the rebellious species. They're going to crush the uprisings. Hana's expression hardened. We can't let that happen. If the Council wins, every species will be too afraid to resist. I know. Jiho opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, prepare for intercept operations. We're not letting the Council murder civilians. His fleet jumped to FTL, racing to intercept the Council forces. But they weren't alone. Captain Minho Yoon, commander of the stealth ship Shadow of Earth, was already there. Minho's ship was invisible to normal sensors, a ghost that could slip into enemy space undetected. For weeks, he had been operating behind Council lines, gathering intelligence, making contact with suppressed species, and delivering the evidence that Hana was broadcasting. Shadow of Earth, to Admiral Kang, Minho's voice came through on a secure channel. I have eyes on the Council fleets. They're heading toward the Velen system. The Velens are one of the species that rebelled. Can you get there before they do? Already here, sir. And I've brought friends. On Minho's display, dozens of ships appeared. They were Velen vessels, outdated and poorly armed, but they were ready to fight for their freedom. The Velens say they'd rather die free than live as slaves, Minho reported. They're asking for any help we can provide. Jiho made his decision quickly. Tell them we're sending weapons, shields, and tactical support. And tell them to hold on. We're coming. His fleet arrived in the Velen system hours before the Council forces. They distributed military hardware, shared shield technology, and positioned themselves alongside the Velen defenders. When the Council fleet emerged from FTL, they found not helpless civilians, but a prepared defense force backed by human military power. The Council commander sent a transmission. Human vessels, withdraw immediately. This is an internal Council matter. Your interference is an act of war. Jiho responded calmly. You declared war when you tried to destroy our colonies. You declared war when you treated us as less than equals. You declared war when you pushed us too far. These people want their freedom. We're going to make sure they get it. The battle was brief. The Council fleet still reeling from their losses at Tanis, had no appetite for fighting humans again. They retreated after losing a dozen ships, leaving the Velans free. It happened again at 3 more systems. Council fleets sent to crush rebellions found human forces waiting. Each time, the Council retreated. Each time, another species gained its freedom. Vexthun appeared on every broadcast channel, his rage visible even through his reptilian features. The humans are destroying the order that has maintained peace for 2,000 years. They are supporting terrorists and criminals. They must be stopped. He made his announcement. The Krell Empire will lead a coalition fleet to Earth itself. We will end this human rebellion once and for all. 2.5 million ships will be assembled, the largest fleet in galactic history, and we will crush humanity's homeworld. Across human space, the news spread quickly. 2.5 million ships. It was an unimaginable number. Every military strategist agreed that no defense could stand against such a force. But in the command center on Luna Base, Fleet Admiral Daehyun Park was smiling. They're committing everything, he said. The entire Krell military, plus forces from their allies. They're leaving their own space virtually undefended. Director Nari pulled up intelligence reports. Confirmed. They're so focused on crushing us that they've forgotten about protecting themselves. Their colonies will be vulnerable. And they're coming to Sol, Daehyun said. To Earth itself. Can we stop them? General Taeyang asked. 2.5 million ships. Even with all our preparations, those are impossible odds. Not if they're coming into a trap, Dr. Yuna said. She had been working for weeks without sleep, preparing something special. We've been working on the Sol defense grid. It's finally ready. Show me, Daehyun ordered. The display changed, showing the solar system. What appeared to be empty space was actually filled with defensive positions, platforms hidden throughout the system, weapons built into asteroids, satellites that looked like communication arrays but were actually military hardware. How many platforms? Daehyun asked. 7,000 in the inner system. Another 3,000 in the outer reaches. Plus the fleet, plus the ground defenses on Earth, Luna, and Mars. And Yuna pulled up her final design. The Kasaba howitzer satellites. What are those? Nuclear-shaped charges. We compress the nuclear explosion into a directed beam. One satellite can vaporize ships in formation. We have 500 of them, placed throughout the system. Daehyun studied the display. The Krell were bringing overwhelming force, but they were bringing it into a killing field that humanity had spent 3 decades preparing. They think they're going to crush us, he said. Instead, they're going to break themselves against our defenses. And while they're here, dying in our system, their own space will be undefended. He turned to Admiral Jiho. How many ships can you spare? 200. Why? Because while the Krell are dying at Earth, you're going to take those 200 ships and liberate every Krell colony that doesn't want to be part of their empire anymore. We're not just going to win this battle. We're going to break the Krell Empire completely, Jiho smiled. They're going to regret pressing us too far. Yes, they are. Across the galaxy, the Krell coalition assembled. 2.5 million ships from a dozen species, all united by the Council's order to crush humanity. They gathered at the edge of human space, preparing for the final assault. They had no idea what was waiting for them. In his private quarters, a man named Woojin Nam reviewed the battle plans. He was known only as the Architect, the strategist who had predicted this war 30 years ago. He had told Earth's leaders that the Council would eventually push too far, that humanity needed to prepare not because they wanted war but because war would find them anyway. Now his predictions were coming true. The Council had pressed too far. Woojin looked at the final piece of the plan, the one he had never shown anyone. If the Krell broke through the defenses, if humanity faced extinction, there was one last option. A weapon so terrible he had prayed they would never need it. But if they did need it, it was ready. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Hope for peace, but prepare for war. The Krell coalition fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system like a plague of metal and fire. 2.5 million ships, stretching across space so far that sensors couldn't register them all at once. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. And it had one purpose: to destroy Earth. Fleet Admiral Daehyun Park stood in the command center beneath Luna, watching the enemy fleet approach. Around him, officers worked calmly at their stations. There was no panic. No fear. They had been preparing for this for 3 decades. "Give me a count," Daehyun said. 2,470,000 ships confirmed, his tactical officer reported. "They're organizing into assault formations. Looks like they plan to sweep through the system in waves. Time until they reach the first defensive line? 6 hours. Daehyun nodded. 6 hours to prepare. 6 hours before the largest battle in human history began. He opened a channel to all human forces throughout the system. "This is Fleet Admiral Park. Today, the Council comes to break us. They bring overwhelming numbers because they think that's all it takes to win. They're wrong. We're not fighting for conquest or pride. We're fighting for our right to exist as equals. For our homes. For our freedom. Show them what humanity is capable of when we're pushed too far." Across the system, soldiers prepared. Ships moved into position. And on Earth, billions of civilians watched the skies, knowing their fate would be decided in the next few hours. Dr. Yuna Shin activated the Sol defense grid from her station. The display lit up as thousands of hidden platforms revealed themselves. Weapon systems that had been disguised for decades now showed their true purpose. "Grid is active," she reported. "All systems showing green. Kasaba howitzer satellites are armed and ready." The Krell fleet entered the outer system. They spread out, covering as much space as possible, trying to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. It was a tactic that had worked for them for centuries. They didn't know it would be their downfall. First wave entering the minefield. Tactical reported. The minefield wasn't conventional. Humanity had seeded the outer system with gravitational mines, devices that created small but powerful gravity wells. When the Krell ships hit them, they were pulled off course, colliding with each other. Formations breaking apart into chaos. "Second defensive line, fire at will," Daehyun ordered. The outer platforms opened up. These weren't the heavy weapons near Earth. These were designed for one purpose: to force the enemy to cluster together. They fired indiscriminately, pushing the Krell fleet into tighter and tighter formations as they tried to advance. "They're bunching up, just like we predicted," Yuna said. "Kasaba howitzer satellites targeting. Fire." 500 satellites activated simultaneously. Nuclear weapons detonated. But these weren't normal explosions. The energy was focused, compressed into narrow beams of pure destruction. Those beams swept through the clustered Krell formations like scythes through wheat. Ships didn't just die. They vaporized. Entire formations disappeared in seconds. Where there had been thousands of vessels, there was now only debris and radiation. The Krell pushed forward. They had expected losses. What they hadn't expected was the scale. In the first hour, they lost 200,000 ships. But they kept coming. "They're adapting," Tactical reported, "spreading out more, avoiding the mines. They're learning." "Then we teach them another lesson," Daehyun said. "Activate the inner grid." The inner defensive platforms were different. These were the weapons humanity had designed specifically to kill capital ships. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, laser arrays powered by fusion reactors, particle beams that could cut through any armor, missile pods that launched thousands of smart munitions. The Krell fleet hit the inner grid and stalled. Every meter they advanced cost them dozens of ships. Their superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't bring those numbers to bear effectively. "They're trying to overwhelm the Mars defense cluster," Tactical warned. "Let them try. General Taeyang replied from his command post on Mars. We're ready. The Krell sent 500,000 ships toward Mars, trying to take out one of humanity's major military centers. They found the planet ringed with defensive positions, and the human ground forces were ready. Massive cannons fired from the surface. Fighters launched from hidden bases. The Mars Defense Force met the Krell, assault with everything they had. Ships died by the thousands, and slowly, impossibly, the assault was pushed back. On Luna, Daehyun watched the battle unfold. The Krell were losing. They had brought overwhelming force, and it wasn't enough. But they weren't retreating. They kept pushing forward, accepting horrific losses, driven by desperation and pride. 4 days, his tactical officer said. That's how long they've been attacking. We've destroyed over half their fleet. But they're not stopping. They can't stop, Daehyun said. If they retreat now, every species in the galaxy will know they failed. The council will collapse. They have to win or lose everything. Sir, they're massing for an assault on Earth itself. They're committing their remaining forces to one final push. Daehyun looked at the display. 1 million ships, all that remained of the Krell coalition, were gathering for a desperate charge at humanity's homeworld. This was it. The final battle. All forces, fall back to Earth orbit. Let them come. The Krell fleet surged forward. They thought they finally had a chance, that humanity was retreating in fear. They were wrong. Earth was protected by the most powerful defenses humanity had ever built. Platforms surrounded the planet in layers. The human fleet, still relatively intact, waited in perfect formation, and on the surface, billions of civilians had evacuated to underground shelters, trusting their military to protect them. The Krell charged into the teeth of Earth's defenses and died. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Krell coalition fleet was destroyed. Of 2.5 million ships, fewer than 50,000 survived to retreat. The space around Earth was filled with debris, a graveyard of broken vessels and shattered dreams. But humanity's fleet was still mostly intact. The defenses still functioned. Earth still stood. In the command center, Daehyun received reports from across the system. Total human casualties, 38,000. Total Krell casualties, estimated at 15 million. It was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Jiho. Jiho's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but satisfied. The Krell Empire is falling apart. While they were dying here, we liberated 17 of their colonies. The species they oppressed are declaring independence. The Krell have lost half their territory in 4 days. And the Council? Gone. The Council chambers on Kepler 9 are empty. Vexthun fled. Most of the member species are withdrawing, declaring independence, or forming new alliances. The Council as we knew it doesn't exist anymore. Daehyun felt the weight of what they had done. They had broken an empire that had lasted 2,000 years. Not through conquest, but through resistance. By refusing to be victims. What about the other suppressed species? 15 species have asked to meet with us. They want to form a new alliance, one based on equality, not domination. Ambassador Hana Lee joined the transmission. We're calling it the Terran Coalition. Open to all species, but with one absolute rule. Every member is equal. No junior species. No senior members. Just partners. Will they agree to that? Daehyun asked. They already have. They've seen what happens when someone tries to dominate humanity. They don't want to risk it. They don't want to risk it. Daehyun allowed himself a moment of relief. They had won. Not just the battle, but the war. Humanity had forced the galaxy to treat them as equals. There's one more thing, Jiho said. Vexthun sent a message before he disappeared. He says, this isn't over, that there are threats beyond Council space, and humanity will regret destroying the order that protected the galaxy. Let him say what he wants, Daehyun replied. We didn't want this war. We wanted peace. But they pushed us too far. They left us no choice. In a secure facility deep beneath Earth's surface, Woo Jin Nam watched the broadcasts. The architect's plan had worked perfectly. 30 years of preparation had paid off. Humanity had not just survived, but had transformed the entire galactic order. He thought about Vex Thun's warning. Threats beyond council space. Perhaps there were. Perhaps something worse was coming. But if it did, humanity would face it the same way they had faced the council. With preparation. With intelligence. With the willingness to fight when fighting became necessary. 5 years later, Ambassador Hana Lee stood before the first assembly of the Terran Coalition. 23 species had joined. All equals. All free. She looked out at the representatives and remembered the council chamber where she had been mocked and dismissed. We didn't want this war, she said. We wanted peace. We wanted to be partners in a great galactic community. But the council taught us a valuable lesson. Peace without strength is just waiting to be a victim. Dignity without the power to defend it is meaningless. She paused, letting her words sink in. We learned that lesson, and we will never forget it. This coalition is different. We don't rule each other. We protect each other. We grow together. And if anyone threatens us, we stand together. The assembly erupted in agreement. Species that had been enemies under council rule now stood as allies. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had been the catalyst. Later, as Hana returned to her office, she received a priority alert. Unknown ships had been detected at the edge of charted space. Huge vessels, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They weren't council. They were something else. Something new. A message had been received. It was simple and terrifying. Hana looked at the report and smiled coldly. Let them come. The council had learned what happened when you pushed humanity too far. If this new threat wanted to learn the same lesson, humanity was ready to teach them. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had abandoned peace when they were forced to. Now they had learned to balance peace with power, diplomacy with strength, hope with preparation, and they would never be victims again.